My name's Claire Morgan and I'm an artist. I make drawings and sculptures. I'm from Belfast originally, but I live in Newcastle upon Tyne now, Gateshead. It's the same town basically. There's myself and my sister, mother and father. And my sister's 2 years younger than me. She's now a nurse, and my father's a maths teacher. He's retired now. He taught in a school for his whole career. And my mum was a nurse as well. She died in 1992. Neither of my parents were interested in art as far as I am aware. The only thing I can think actually is my dad used to make fractal drawings. I can remember that from photographs of me as a baby. I think whenever I was being christened, there's a drawing that he did in the background that's, you know, a kind of simple fractal. That's like the only artistic thing I can think of from my parents. But I just always wanted to be an artist. That was the thing that I wanted to be whenever I was a little kid. I was always drawing and making things whenever I was a child, and making things outside as well. So our house was surrounded by countryside, and we played more in fields than with other kids actually. Whenever I was a teenager, and when I was at university as well, actually, I think I was quite boring. Like, I was just working on art things the whole time, and like at lunchtime staying in class in school by myself to draw or whatever. It's funny actually, whenever I was in, let me see, I probably would have been 12 or 13 in school, we were asked to choose an image of an artwork from a book and copy a detail of it in our sketchbooks, big, like a really basic exercise, and I couldn't choose one, and my teacher said, oh, what about this one? And it's the Rousseau, which is I can't remember the name of it, but it's the Rousseau piece which has a woman in the foreground reclining and some like tiger or something in the background. And so I went home and drew the whole thing, and I didn't realise I was only supposed to draw a small bit. But I remember that drawing always because of that. And then just recently I was in Basel for a site visit for an exhibition I've got coming up there. And I was looking in one of the museums there, and there wasn't that Rousseau, but there was another Rousseau that was really, really similar. And it was just really amazing actually to see it in real life. It just seems silly because you've seen it, it's different whenever you see something in real life though. Like, it really, actually it had an impact on me, and one of my paintings that I've just been working on is called Jungle with Setting Sun, which is the same as his, and it's quite different from his work, but that's the point of using the same title and then changing it. There was a sense that if you were going to be an artist in Northern Ireland, your art would be about the situation in Northern Ireland, and a lot of artists there, that's what their work's about, and it's not something that I ever really wanted to pursue at all. I lived a little bit outside Belfast, but at that point in time living there, you can always feel the conflict there. As a teenager, for example, and you're meeting other kids, and what's your name is a loaded question, because if your name is a primarily Catholic name, then you've kind of cornered yourself, or if it's a predominantly Protestant name, the same thing. So unless you know what the other person is first, it's kind of dangerous. And the same with what school you go to, you don't know what the right answer is going to be. So it's always was an underlying thing actually. Like whenever I moved to Newcastle and we were looking for a house to live in, the immediate thing was, oh, is this a Catholic or a Protestant area? And it doesn't exist anywhere else, but you don't realise the really considerable things that are affecting your life. And I was never really directly affected by anything, anything really bad, like someone being killed or a bomb or anything like that. But I remember whenever I was a child walking to school, this is whenever I was maybe 6 or 7 years old, British soldiers would be hiding in the hedges of gardens on the street as you were walking along. There would always be soldiers kind of hiding in the hedges with their guns kind of following whoever's going past. And I remember a couple of times soldiers spitting at me because I was wearing a Catholic school uniform. Like, it's not cool at all. It's a really, really horrible thing. So it just made me want to leave there, actually. So I did. Whenever I started uni, I had this idea at school about possibly fashion design, and whenever I was starting to think of ideas for clothes or dresses, they were always really stupid, actually. Like, they had the same kind of themes of my work, actually. I remember I made this dress which was a metal petticoat that was made out of wire, and it had plant pots in it, and there were plants growing around it and stuff. So there was the kind of conflict between organic and geometric and manufactured things. It was completely impractical as any kind of fashion design, and it wasn't going to work. So I kind of realized, actually, it's sculpture. So whenever I went to the degree at university, I just did a sculpture degree. I was always using organic materials whenever I was at university, and using animals. It just seems like a logical thing to me that the animals, once they are dead, it's an organic material, and so I was just using it. And I was working with animals which weren't taxidermied, which are just dead, rotting, or dried, or fragments, or in different ways, but not very hygienic or nice ways. But this was what I was interested in then, was very, very real decay and death and things. I think I was quite difficult. I'm very feminist and very political and really quite aggressive, actually. And whenever I started making suspended things, it's because I wanted to make something that was scary and unpleasant for the viewer. And I was wanting to suspend things that were dangerous or dirty or unpleasant in some way, and that's why I started using rotting fruit. And then actually the process of suspending things became more the focus, and it became less aggressive. I kind of realized that's not a way to communicate with people effectively. There has to be some kind of beauty or some way of getting them open. And at the point whenever I started using animals, I don't think I would have entertained the idea of using taxidermy, because it's not the real animal, and I had this idea in my head of truth through materials, and if it's not actually the dead animal, then it's, because inside the taxidermy it's just a styrofoam model that's carved. So it would have been problematic for me at that time. But then as my work started to become more static, originally it's always been about change and time passing, but in the beginning I was sort of literally representing those things. So I was using materials like strawberries or something that is changing quite dramatically the whole time, or ice melting, or animals that are actually decaying. And then over time it became more about halting that as a means of exploring it. So still looking at the same thing, but not looking at it by just doing it, because it's a bit obvious and easy after a while. I started exploring it from a different direction. And so everything else in it became more about suspense and control, and taxidermy just kind of came as a natural progression from that. I started having ideas that were more specific in terms of what the animals were doing. And so there was a specific idea for a piece with a fox, and the fox was to be standing up in it. And you can't make it stand up unless you taxidermy it, so I started learning it so that I could do that. And I was learning it on a I did a residency on a farm in rural Cornwall in the southwest of England, and so I was going to be there for 8 weeks, and I thought, okay, this is a really rural location, I will find roadkill and I will experiment and see if I'm able to do it. And for the whole of the 8 weeks, absolutely nothing dead whatsoever, and I was spending all of the time cycling around the roads just in the hope of finding any rubbish dead animal, and nothing at all, until the last week, and then there was a weasel and a fox, both. So I messed around with those, and started to kind of try and teach myself a little bit. But actually the thing that came out of that residency as well is, while I was looking for these animals, looking for any kind of interesting organic stuff, because that's all that I'd really worked with so far, I just kept finding plastic from farming waste, and that's the first time that I was using bits of torn up plastic as well, actually, because while I was looking for natural things, that's all that there was. There was just loads and loads of plastic everywhere, rubbish. Organic materials are things that occur naturally, are just much more beautiful than anything that we can create anyway, so it's a good starting point to make things out of those. It's kind of cheating. Actually, I started making drawings whenever I was on the residency that I did in Holland. I definitely wouldn't have been allowed to make drawings in Newcastle. And it was a way, a practicality of just explaining ideas that I had, or trying to create an atmosphere or explain more than words could what an idea might be before it's actually made. And they were just sketches of sculptures like that for quite a long time. And then whenever I started doing taxidermy, then that kind of combined with it, and I started using pieces of paper underneath the animals whenever I'm doing the skinning of the animal, and then making marks on the page, and then that would be the basis for drawings. And then the actual making the drawings on top of that was quite often quite directly related to the sculptures that the animals were part of. So they weren't illustrations as such. They were sometimes with a sculpture, especially a suspended thing. The level of precision that I could achieve, or the form, isn't necessarily the same as what you could do with a drawing, so it's sort of like a different avenue of the same idea. I did an exchange in Holland for 3 months, and whereas in Newcastle, no matter what you made, basically they said it was shit, and in Holland, no matter what you made, they said it was amazing. So I realised, actually, this is just somebody's opinion. It doesn't necessarily reflect reality. It's just an opinion. So it enabled me to see that I should just do what I think seemed like, just try and absorb the information, but don't necessarily believe it. Whenever I was at university and whenever I was starting out, I was really self-confident, but I probably shouldn't have been. And then, whenever you're younger, you think you know all of the things, and then as time goes on, you realise that you don't know any of the things. So I don't know if that results in a lack of confidence now, or maybe I've become confident in the fact that I don't know anything. Yeah. I think I just always had a determined, I don't know if confidence really came into it. I was just always really determined, this is what I'm going to do. So whenever I graduated from uni, I didn't even wait for someone to offer me an exhibition. I just decided I'm going to organise my own exhibition, and went and organised this thing that was quite elaborate, actually. I just didn't really look outside myself. I just wanted to do it. The work that I've decided to make is really complicated. in logistical ways, which is my own fault. It's really, really hard work. You don't really have any time for anything else in life. Like each year I think, oh, I'll have more time to actually see friends and stuff this year, and then each year it's like, okay, well there's a period of 4 months where I'm just not going to go outside the house, and then I'll have time, and then you get to that point and then you've got like 2 weeks and then it just starts again, and it's just kind of ongoing. I don't have any ideas in my head of something that I want to make that I haven't made yet. I never really get to the point of having time to even get that far. I've got sort of half ideas and stuff drawn on my wall, and eventually I was fine with ideas that I have that I hope to make that aren't related to a project. Eventually a project comes around and they kind of fit into it in some shape or form, not necessarily exactly the same thing. But I'd like to have more time to do painting and drawing as well as the sculptural stuff. I actually just started working on some paintings which are much more large in scale and much more like paintings rather than drawings than anything that I've done before. And I find it very scary but very exciting to do that, because I don't know it. Like with my sculptural work, as far as the things that I'm making now, I know the process of it inside out. So there's an aspect of it where it's kind of easy, but maybe too easy. But then that also opens up different doors, because I can make things that are more complex and so on. The drawings and the paintings that I've been making recently are definitely outside comfort zone stuff. Yeah, and quite exciting because of that actually.